Greetings. This video, as usual, is going to be sort of all over the place, but it's more about, it's a personal diary really, and take from it, hopefully there'll be things that you'll have these aha moments, things might click into place, things you've been thinking about, or even things you've been thinking about and bits that haven't occurred to you that come into it. Hopefully things will just click. So it happens for me. At the moment we're going through a transitional phase. This year has been very much about that. The whole idea of everything is a lie, and looking externally at pretty much everything and anything, all comes to that same answer. It's the only answer that I can get from any of it. But I do like to, the intention of this channel is to go through a process I'm finding I'm going through, where it gets to a point where you look at everything external and you think, no more. And it's amazing what sort of comes clearly. This exterior world around you, everything around you, I think it's pretty safe to say, in ways we partly understand, its frequency, its light photons, and to the five senses it all looks very real. I mean, this table is solid, I can feel it, my feeling tells me it's there, my eyes tell me there's a table there. But what I'm starting to see from all of this is just further and further confirming what Neville Goddard talks about, that it's all created from how we think, how we feel. There's a dialogue going on inside of us. Now, we've all done this. You've had a disagreement with a work colleague, or maybe even at school. How many times do you replay that over and over and over in your mind? And in doing so, what you're actually doing is you're creating these chemical changes in the body and the DNA. This is all scientifically proved in so many tests, but you implant. It's all about, there's always as I've said before, there's always a physical and there's always a spiritual. So something, you make an impression. Well, one of the best examples of that would be a headstone, where it's carved in with that lettering with a name on it and various other bits and pieces. But this is making, from the unseen world, an impression on us. The more we replay and repeat that film in our mind's eye, we're creating chemical changes to the body. And it gets to the point where the body is running the show. And it is running the way we operate. You're not then in control of the body. The servant of the mind is now doing everything. And a lot of it, I mean, it's not all bad. I mean, you think about the way the body functions. You don't have to consciously think about the operation of any part of the physical body. And by extension of that, by repetition, like with learning to drive. There gets a point where you have learned to drive, you've mastered it, you don't even think about changing gear, applying your foot to the brake pedal or the accelerator, indicating, looking in the mirrors, you just sort of do it. But if those feelings that are created are negative feelings, they will come up repeatedly. It's talked about how we need to move out of our comfort zone. And that's quite true, because those chemical changes in the body will then well up inside and communicate with the mind and saying, I've got this. You don't really want to feel like that by looking at that subject in a different way. And you certainly don't want to speak about it because people will think you're crazy, for example. So the chemicals are now, you've got used to a painful way of allowing the chemical changes in the body to deal with things and reassure you that come back into the safety zone again. So we're back to square one. We don't grow. I'm still processing all of this. I'm a work in progress, a long, long way to go. It's always a stage where you think, I've got it, and then it's like, no, I haven't. Back we go again, and back to the, or maybe we graduate to the next level, as it were, and then goes from there. But I was looking or thinking about nature, and I was thinking about this whole Agenda 21, this transhumanism, this sexless, neither male nor female thing, and thinking, what about the mirror of that? And then I thought about nature. I thought about trees. I thought about the sketch I did. And when you think about it, a seed opens up, trees branch out, flowers open up. It's talked about so many times about spiritual growth, about blossoming, about flowering. So I then started thinking about this. In this physical 5-sense reality, I sort of hinted at this without even sort of thinking the next stage on from that, when I said about the 5 senses. We're dealing with something that has a physical, but there is also a spiritual, the seen and the unseen. So you've got these 5 senses which you use, eyes for sight, ears for hearing, and you'll use expressions like, I see now, when somebody explains something that you didn't understand. But you're not physically seeing, but you're seeing with the mind's eye. So how far do we spiritually grow? Well, in this reality, I would say you double yourself. So 1 becomes 2. So there's the mirror of the transhumanism of the 2 becomes 1, because we flip things back the other way with this. So it's all about opening up, seeing the bigger picture. Everything is describing about opening up to new ideas, cutting ties with old ways of thinking. And yeah, this is the programming thinking. The feelings that you generate, the chemical changes, and then things happen in the external world, and those feelings will then extend. So that first feeling you got when you had an argument with a work colleague will then come back, and those feelings will also come into other situations, and this whole thing then spirals the wrong way. This is my understanding of all this at the moment. It comes down to the subjective ideas in the mind come into objectivity in this reality. The best example of this would be the thought of a building which becomes a blueprint, an architect's drawing, and then becomes a physical reality. That all started as an idea and then comes. You don't even need to get into chronology of buildings or anything. But I think if anything is to be learned from that external world, it's all about contraction. It backs up what Neville Goddard says again about we are God in the most contracted, restricted form. And everything, when you're looking at that external world, is showing that same thing, that things are becoming cheaper, they're poorer quality, they don't last as long. It's all about spending, renewing, replacing, all about continuous change all the time. Nothing fixed or permanent. It's all external distraction, all trying to keep us off where it's all about going within. And really, with a seed, an idea is a seed. And we're also talking about getting to the root of a problem. So a seed has roots as well. So if we've generated these chemicals that they've now rooted in these physical bodies, and they will suddenly spring up and come into the mind, those feelings, and we react from those feelings. It's where we need to be the observer, and it's like, whoa, stand back from ourselves. So it's just the thought there of, well, Agenda 12 instead. 12 is a magical number anyway, isn't it? I think we can discuss that in so many ways. I think I already have on here. I mean, you get the picture, 12 disciples, 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night, and so on and so on. So Agenda 12, let's flip the script. Let's be greater than our physical vessel and become what we want to be. Because there is the unseen and the seen, and this is scientifically proven. This is quantum potential. If you take an atom, 95% of it is no thing. And what are we made up from? Atoms, and then all the parts of the atom, the electrons, the photons, the protons, the neutrons. We're all connected. We are not separate from anything. The old scientific ways and the ways of looking at things, they're getting left behind. They're going off on a completely wrong route. And the longer this journey takes, these experiences take, means it's then harder to try and break these cycles. But it's like everything. It's the amount of effort you put in and how much energy you put into something is going to depend on how much you're going to get out of it. Now, I'm going to put a link to Dr. Joe Dispenza's wonderful book. Now, it's 10 hours long, but don't go, oh, I haven't got time for that. Well, make the time. Don't listen. You won't want to listen to the full 10 hours in one hit. I've still not done it. I would say do an hour, do a couple of hours, but don't just listen to it once. At least hear these things 3 times over. This is what works for me. It's like the first time I hear it, it's just sounds, and I'm not taking in the same way. Like you'll see, if you watch a film a second time, you'll see things you didn't see the first time round. You'll notice other bits and pieces, and it's the same with taking in this information, and it's all then evaluation. I'm not saying this is right for everybody. I'm only sharing my personal experience of this. Take of it what you will. The greatest compliment as I've said before, is all our channels lose our subscribers because the message that we're sharing, and that's, well, we're hopefully all the channel, everybody else who's got a channel is still growing, whatever perspective they're looking at. But I really would seriously suggest only go so far with the external, because it's, how does it benefit you? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter whether it's good, bad, it's irrelevant from that point of view. It's, how does that serve you? How is that going to make you feel? What chemicals are you now creating? What changes are you creating to your DNA? Are you putting yourself from a mental state, from a state of mind? Have you created a feeling that is putting the body into a less than healthy state? Forget all the external about what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, what's good for you, what's bad for you. Again, that's all irrelevant at this stage, because most of this should be, the way I see it, can all be controlled from the mind. Yes, you can make it easier on yourself by adopting diets and things that feels right. And I would seriously look into the whole spectrum and then go, what feels right for you? But it's all about, when it comes down to, I mean, look, this is an addiction. The body's sort of in control of that. In some ways it's like, how horrible, I'm not in control. But then I have to weigh up. If I completely stop dead, go cold turkey, I'm not making an excuse. I don't go with the narrative about smoking. Yes, I know there's all the things about all the chemicals and things, but it's another one of these things the body has got used to, same as coffee, caffeine. It's entirely up to you. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong to any of this. You just do what feels right for you and at the pace that suits you. Don't let anybody say you've got to do this in 2 weeks and then by week 4 you should be at this level. We're all different. We've got unique sets of circumstances, unique scenarios just tailored to us. No two of us are completely identical. You may have similarities, you may have similar lifestyles and things, but that's as far as it goes, really. And then add on to that your own way you've been shaped by this world and what has been set up on what you like and or dislike. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's down to each individual. It's a bit all over the place, I know, but I'm just more sort of wanting to share the thoughts as I've got them fresh in the mind. The numbers thing, numbers are neutral. You can read into them whatever you want. I would just take it as it's another useful tool. If it helps explain things, then if it helps inside, this is what it comes down to. I have spoken before, and I could speak again about how all these numbers are encoded into these physical bodies, for example. And it's worth doing, I think, to develop an understanding of what are we and what are these vessels that we're in, and how can we make this experience better for ourselves, and by extension, again, but like the magnetics, what goes out comes back. So we want to be putting out the best of ourselves. So the only place to start is going in oneself to do this. So yeah, this channel I'm sort of trying to steer away from the truth seeking to the inward journey, because whatever one of the conspiracy theories, for example, whichever one you start with, it's just the first door opens that leads to a room that now has many doors, and you can look at various conspiracies, but the answer's still going to be the same one. It's not as you've been told. But that's not going to really help you as an inner being. It's the first veil, as it were, to come off, definitely, because it then opens up. But then not everybody does come from that way. Then some of you just come down the spiritual route. It comes from the feeling of, I don't feel like I belong here, this doesn't feel like home, etc. And you've got so many various ideas on origins, Pleiadians, Lemurians, and all this sort of thing, Draco. Again, in many ways, irrelevant, because it's all about in the now, in the present, and that would have been then. So it's gone. It's like, well, I need to find out who I am. That's really what this is all about. And this whole process, this year has actually been wonderful. It has been a 2020 for me. I'm fortunate in that I'm not affected by the external as much as many other people that have to face it on a daily basis. I'm very fortunate like that. So I can only talk about it from a personal perspective. It's get your thinking caps together, come together, share the ideas of how you would cope in a scenario. It may help somebody else who's struggling more than you. We're all helping each other. This is all about raising up as one, this coming together, this all being one. So that's the whole purpose of me making videos, really. It's a video diary, and I hope that there's things in it that will help you. I'm loving this experience. I'm going to stumble and trip and get it wrong sometimes, but it's no different from learning to drive. You get to a certain point, and then they're bringing the idea of, oh, now you've got to learn to reverse the vehicle. And then you'll find you'll go through a stage where the things that you sort of already picked up and got to a level with, actually, you're not doing it as well. And you know you're not doing it as well, because you've absorbed a bit more information that has to process. Because you're not just going forward, you're now learning to go backward, interpreting what you're seeing in the mirrors and being aware of all around. I think it's a great analogy. It's one I can draw on from personal experience. And if you look at this is something else I was contemplating. This wonderful unfolding of everything, because the heart is basically folded up and forms like an X shape. It forms like an arch, which, funny enough, they call a Gothic Arch, or if the heart is not in good condition and it collapses, it's then called a Roman arch. All roads lead to, again, let's get to the heart of the matter. But even things like that, and I said to a couple of people in messages, imagine, go back 5 years to what you knew then. Now you imagine if you'd have got that all thrown at you in one hit, how enormous, how daunting that would have looked. So savour every moment, even the things that seem like mistakes, because they're not mistakes, they're learning as we go, and because they're sticking the mind easier then. But I will say, I've got to reiterate again, listening to the audio books and things, do it 3 times. I mean, the Trinity, the number. There's another number thing. See things in